Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi and today we are going to discuss about the decorators followed by encapsulation, polymorphism and then setter and getter methods. Okay, just 1 second. Yeah, fine. So basically today we are going to say about the decorators, that what are decorators, and then we are just going to see one example, that basically how we declare the decorators in Python. Then we'll be seeing that what is encapsulation and polymorphism. We are going to see the examples and definitions for both of these, and then we'll move towards the setter and getter methods, which are basically used in the classes. Fine. So these are the 5 topics for today, which we are going to cover right now. Fine. So we'll be just taking it in a way that firstly we'll just go to the OneNote to understand some theoretical part about the topics, and then we'll just come back to this PyCharm and do the practical. So the first topic for today is decorator. So let me quickly go to the OneNote, and here you see one definition for the decorator. So I hope it is visible. So fine, yeah, it's fine. Absolutely fine. Okay, so it is written, a decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class. A reference to a function func or a class C is passed to a decorator, and the decorator returns a modified function or class. The modified functions or classes usually contains calls to the original function func or class. Basically here what it is written, that what is a decorator and what does decorators do. So decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function of a class. So here from here what we can just see, that what is decorator basically used for. Decorator is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class in Python. Fine. So if, without just understanding the whatever whole is written, you can just understand it in a way. If you're just not able to grasp so much of content or so much of definition for this, you can just understand it in a way that a decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class. Simple, very simple definition for a decorator. Now basically how we just write a decorator, how just we declare a decorator. So let me just quickly show you right here, and then we just move towards the Python. We are going to see the example. So I will just write as this at the rate. And after using this at the rate in front of this at the rate, we basically write the decorator, and we just make the decorator, and we just write the short form for the decorator. Fine. So let's say I just want to make a decorator, and the name for the decorator is decorator1. Fine. So I would just write here as decorator1. So at the rate and then decorator1. This is basically how we just declare a decorator in Python. This is how we just make a decorator. Fine. So this is a way for making the decorator. Now what is this decorator1? Let's say this is a name of one class. Let's say I have just made a class, and that class is having one name, and that the name for that class is decorator1. Let's say, fine. So what I have done, I have just made the decorator for the respective class. The name for that class is decorator1. I have just made the decorator for that respective class. As I just wrote here, that basically what I just wrote, and decorator is Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or class, right? That I just mentioned, that is used to modify a function or a class. That is why, let's say this is one of my functions. Okay, let's say this is one of my functions. Fine. So I just wrote decorate1, and at the front of it I just put the at the rate sign. So this is basically how we just initialize and how we just make a decorator in this Python programming. Fine, let's quickly move towards the PyCharm, and let's have an example for those decorators. And yeah, let's move on to the thing. So just let me go to the side, and yeah, I just guess it is totally zooming. Yeah, it's zooming. Fine. And I would just put a hash sign, and I would just write here as decorators. Fine. Okay, so I must write single O. Fine. Now let's quickly move towards the things for now. Fine. For the first time, what I'm just gonna make here, I'm just going to make a function. I will just write here if func1. Let's say this is one of my functions which I would not include C. Fun1. This is one of my functions which I just made that right now. Def fun1 and in the brackets. Fine. Now what I'm just going to write, I'm just going to write print, and here I would just write as fun with data science. Let's say I just wrote the channel name, and that is fun with data science. Fine. What I would just come out. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do one thing. I'm going to take one variable, that is fun2. Fine. This fun2 is one of the variables which I have just taken right now. Now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to put a equal to sign, and this is fun1. Now basically what I am doing, I'm making a copy of my fun1 function which I have made, and making a copy of this function and saving it into another variable, and that variable name is fun2. Okay, now just here pay attention and listen to my words very careful, that what I am just doing here, I'm just making a copy of my fun1 function, okay, in which I have stored print1 with data sign. I'm just making a copy of that, and I'm storing that copy in the another variable, and name for that variable is fun2. Fine. Here what I would do, I would just write del. Okay, now what is the del used for? You can just understand from the name itself that this is used for deleting the any object, or for deleting anything, any variable in function, something like that. Fine. Okay. And now if I just delete fun2, and yeah, and now I would just write as fun2 and just call it. Then let's quickly print that and let's see that basically what is gonna happen here. Okay, so now just see here. Now what it is saying to me, it is saying to me that name fun2 is not defined. Fine, because what I have done, I have just deleted this fun2. And now in place of this fun2, if I'm just going to call my fun1 function, then what is happening? See here, what I just got the output, that is fun with data signs and fun with data signs. So why I just got 2 10, because one's from here and one from here. Fine. So this is basically what I am doing here. Right, so I have just deleted fun2, and then when I'm just printing this fun1, then also it is just giving me the output. Fine, because I have made a copy. Okay, so this is the basically reason for this. Okay, this was one example, and you can just treat it as example. Fine. Now let's move towards the next thing for today. I would just make one more function, and now the name for my function would be, let's say, fun return. Okay, fun return def, and then fun return, and in bracket what I'm just gonna do, I'm just gonna put a variable parameter num. Okay, now I'm just going to give some conditions, and before giving that condition, let me just quickly connect to my internet, because basically I don't know what has happened here. Fine. So okay, let it be connected or something, whatever like it wishes. Fine. So now what is happening here, I'm just writing if. Now I am having certain conditions. Okay, if num is equal to 0. Okay, so basically what it is saying, if the num is equal to 0, num is one of my variable which I have taken. I am given passed a variable here also. Okay, just hold on for a second, and now once more let me just check out that. Fine, now it will be disconnected. Fine. So basically if num is equal to 0, now what I have a print statement here. Fine, so print and the bracket. Fine. And instead of print, what I would just write, return print, print. Fine. Now here what I have done, I have taken a function, that is fun return, and in bracket I have passed a parameter, that is num. After that I have given the condition, if num is equal to 0, then return print. Fine. And the second condition for now is if. Okay, so if num is equal to 1. If num is equal to 1, then just one second. Fine. And then this is what return me return sum. Fine. So here what I have just done, I have just quickly done okay, just one second. Let me quickly comment the above things, whatever I have just written here. Let me comment that thing. Fine. And let me again zoom in for the better visibility. Okay, fine. So here I have just made the function, that is fun return, and inside that I have just passed one of the parameters, and that parameter is num. Now I have just put here a condition, if num is equal to 0. Fine. The number which we are just gonna enter. If num is equal to 0, then return me print. Fine. And if num is equal to 1, then return me sum. Now after coming out of my function here, what I would do, I would just take a variable and I would just call my function. Fine. So basically calling of my function, I will just write my function name, that is fun return, and in bracket let's say I just pass the value as 0, and here I would just print a. Fine. Now let's quickly run that thing. Okay, so basically now what it is giving me, it is giving me built-in function print, right? Because here what I have just written, I have returned the print, right? So here what I have passed the value, I have passed the value as 0, right? Here I have taken the variable that is a, and in that variable I have just called my fun return function, and inside that I have basically passed a value that is 0. So in the 0 condition, what we have given? We have given if num is equal to 0, return me print. So it is returning me the same thing, that built-in function print. Now if I just take it from 0 to 1, and now when I just run it once more, so let's see that basically what happens. Now what it is giving me? It is giving me built-in function sum. Okay, so here what we have done, we have written a function that is sum, and I have already told in my built-in functions, when I have just told about you about about the function, that there are two types of functions: built-in function, user defined. When I have just told about the built-in function, in that I have taken the same example for the sum itself, right? I have just told you how basically the sum function works. So if you just want to know about this thing a little bit more, you can just go and have a look over that video where I have just discussed about the functions. So I have just written here return and then sum. So basically the sum is one of my built-in functions. That is why again it is showing me built-in function sum. Fine. Now let's say I just make one more function. Okay, my function name would be dev execute. Let's say execute is one of the one more function which I have just made that right now. So inside that execute, what I would just write? I would just write func. Fine. Func is you can treat it as a parameter, right? Because inside the brackets, whenever we pass something in the function, that is being treated as a parameter, right? Fine. So def execute bracket func. Now what I would just write here, I would just write func. What I would just write? I would just write here, okay, subscribe now. Okay, subscribe now. And I will just put this exclamation marks. Fine. Now just have a look that here, instead of that print statement, what I have written the parameter which I have just passed inside my function. My function was execute, right? And inside that function, what I have passed the parameter was func, that is func. Now, instead of the print statement, what I have written the same function, that is the same parameter which I have just passed inside my function, that is func. Now, I would just call my function. Function name was execute, right? And inside that, if I would just print here, right? Now, if I'm going to run my program, see what just output I am gonna get. So this built-in function sum is the above one output. So just let me do one thing this side. Let me just comment the above program which we have just written right now. Just let me do that thing quickly. Fine. And now once again I will just run this program. By the time you have run that on your own also. Fine. Now it is giving me the output as subscribe now. Now, I have not written the subscribe now inside my print statement. Then also I'm getting a subscribe now as the output. Why? Because here what I have done, I have taken a parameter, and that parameter was func, that is func. Now, inside that parameter itself, I have just passed the values. And when I have just called my function, so inside my whenever I just call my function, so in that calling of my function, I just wrote the print statement. Fine. So that is why that is the basic reason. That is why it is just giving me the desired output, and that is subscribe now. Now, why I just told you all of these three examples? They are not related to decorators, right? Here I haven't make any decorator, nothing like that. But why I have just told you all these things? Because I just want to let you know one thing this side. So just let me quickly comment this, and I would just put okay. Done. And now here I will just put some write something. How I have a notice of that. Fine. So here what I just write here, we can insert function inside function. Okay, I'm just writing double I. We can insert function inside function as an argument. Okay, we can insert function inside function as an argument. And what is the second thing which I want to let you know? We can return a function. Fine. So here what we are doing, the previous example which we have seen, the previous example was this example, where what I have done, I have made a function that is fun return. Inside that what I have done, I have passed a parameter that was num, right? Now I have given certain conditions that if num is equal to 0, return print. Now what is this print? Print is a built-in function, right? So that is why here I have written the sentence outside that we can return a function. So what I am doing here, I am returning a particular function. That function is print. Moving towards the second condition, if num is equal to 1. So here I have just given the condition if the value which is stored as num is equal to 1. Then return me sum. So this, what does the sum mean? Sum is also a built-in function, right? So basically in this example, what I am trying to show you is that we can even return a function. So the second one line that we can return a function. Now what is this? We can insert function inside function as an argument. Now what does this term mean, that we can insert a function inside a function as an argument? Now here what I have done. This was my function, right? Execute was one of my functions, and inside that what I have given my another function, that is print. And basically whenever we just call our function and whenever we just like give any value, any string or something inside that function, we just treat it as an argument, right? That we are giving a particular argument to our function. Fine. So what happens, basically we have declared a parameter above side, and while calling, whenever we just declare or define our function, so at that place we just give the parameters to our function, and after like coming out of the function and calling the function, we pass the arguments to our function, right? So this basically happens here. Now the same thing is happening, that here what I have done, I have made a function that was execute. Now listen to my words very carefully this side. I have made a function that is execute. Inside that function I have passed a parameter, and that parameter was func, that is func. Now coming downside, inside this like function, what I have just written, I have written func func, and here I have written this statement that is subscribe. Now that's fine, okay. I came out of my function. I just called my function that is basically execute. And what else I have done? After calling of my function, I have just write here as print. Now what is this print? Print is also one of the function, right? So this is the statement is proof that we can insert function inside function as an argument. So this was basically the reason that I was just showing you these examples before like moving towards decorators. Now without wasting time, I would just quickly move towards the decorators. Fine, let's quickly see an example for the decorators. Okay. Let's say I just made a class here, function here, def decorate 1, fine, and inside that what is passed, I will just pass a func1. Okay, let's say this is one of my parameters which I just passed inside my function, that is decorate 1, and the parameter is func1, func1, fine. Inside this function I just made one more function, that is def exe, fine. I just put the brackets and then colon again. Now moving inside this function, what I just wrote, inside my print statement I just wrote like execute it, fine. Executed was one of my statements which I just wrote here. And yeah, and what else I just write, I would just like parameter that is func1, I just like inserted that, and I will even just put one more print statement here, and inside that print statement I would just write here as done, fine. Now what else I have? As I told you that basically how we make a decorator, and basically like for what we make a decorator. So basically when I just told you definition and the work, so what I just told you that we make a decorator for a function or a class, right? So I would just make the decorator. So decorate 1. Now this is basically how we just declare a decorator. This is basically how we make a decorator, right? I would just write here @ and the name of my function for which I just want to make the decorator. So here for the example, I just want to make my function decorate1 as a decorator for me. So I have just done that thing. I just put the @ sign. And after putting that @ sign, I just wrote my function name for which I just want to make the decorator. Fine. Next, I would just make one more function. Let's say 1. Put the colon, and here I will just write print. And here I would just write here, yeah, print, let's say ABCD. Fine. Let's quickly run that program. Okay, so here I cannot say anything because I haven't called any functions, like I haven't called any function like that. So let's do one thing. Let's quickly call some function or something like that here. So what I would do, I would just like call my function that is exe, and I will put the brackets. Fine, I will just run my program. Okay, so what it is giving me, exe is not defined. Okay, because like, okay, now what happens basically, I have made the decorator, that is decorate one. I just want to show that basically how we make the decorators here, right? Just let me do one thing. Just let me erase this thing, and in place of this I'll let me write one. Now it would be called, because like one is a function. Fine, let me just quickly do that thing. Okay, so basically none type object is not callable. Okay, fine. Basically why it is showing me here, because here I have already made a decorator. So like whenever we just make a decorator, so basically like this we cannot call. So just let me do one thing, and just let me return here as return exe. Now it's fine. Now let me just quickly run the program. Fine. So basically now I am just getting that output, that is executed ABCD, and then now let's see that basically what order we are just getting here. Fine. Now basically what is happening here, firstly what I just missed that side, I just missed this return exe, okay, and I just like cannot directly call the functions outside my like function whenever I just made the decorator. So that is why it was resulting me error. Now the output which I am getting is a format of executed. Fine. Firstly, I'm getting the executed. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Now, after that, what I am getting here, I'm getting as ABCD. So, according to the like program which we have written, it should be executed, then done, and then ABCD, right? But it is not showing me that thing. It is like firstly showing me ABCD and then done. Why? Because just have a look here. Here what I have done, I have written this func func1. I have just called my function here, this parameter, right? That is func1, which I have just used. I have just written it here. Now, this parameter is of which function? This parameter is of the function that is decorate1. Fine. Now, here what I have done, I have made that decorator for the decorate1 function itself. So that is why it is giving me that done afterward, and it is giving me this ABCD firstly. Fine. So this is the okay. I'm so sorry. So yeah, that is okay. So this is the basically reason that's why it is just showing me the resultant as this like, and just let me quickly run it once more. And yeah, it is not showing me anything. Fine, it's absolutely fine. And I will just write here as 1, and I will just now again run that thing. Fine, so I hope now you just got the idea that basically how we can just run the program, and how we can just call the function, we can just run the function in the decorators, and basically how we just do the things in this decorator. And basically the main thing for this like program was how we just declare a decorator. Fine, so @ and decorate one. Now let's do one more thing. Let's quickly move toward the definition for once, and now let's just see the definition that what was it written. So a decorator in Python is any callable Python object that is used to modify a function or a class. Fine. A reference to a function func or a class C is passed to a decorator, and the decorator returns a modified function or a class. Yeah, it does that, right? It has returned me the modified one. The modified functions or classes usually contains calls to the original function func or class. So this was the same thing which our program did. So we have just done the same thing. We have just like made a decorator, and it has even returned us the like call the original function. Fine. So this was the example for the decorators which we have taken for now. Fine. So this was the example for the decorators. Now moving towards our second topic for today, and that second topic is encapsulation. Now I was just telling you about the encapsulation and polymorphism in our same file. So what I would do, I would just like put a hash sign here. Okay, I would just write here as firstly I will just tell you about encapsulation, and I will just remove that one I. Fine. Now what here I would just do, I would just like open the OneNote for now. I would just show you the definition for the encapsulation itself. Fine. So here just see the definition for the encapsulation. Let me take the polymorphism down. Fine. And just 1 second, just let me do one thing here. Just let me choose a specific one. Fine. Encapsulation is one of the fundamental concepts in object-oriented programming. It describes the idea of wrapping data and the methods that work on data within one unit. Fine. What it is encapsulation? So basically, firstly, it is a very fundamental concept in the object-oriented programming, that is OOPS, which we are just taking right now. And the second, what it is, it describes the idea of wrapping data and the methods that work on data within one unit. Within one unit basically means that within one function. Fine. Now, what I just want to mean from here, like what example, what do I basically want to say from here? Let's see this thing through an example. So I will just write a program here. Fine. So what I would just do, firstly, I would just make a very simple class. Let's say the class is A. Now, basically, what is a class? What is the object? How we make a class? How we declare a class? How we make an object? For all these things, I have already made a separate video. Fine. So you can just go over the playlist and just see that the classes and objects. You can just have a look over that thing if you just want to see that basically what are classes, how are classes made, what are objects, how are objects, and all that things. Fine. Class, I've just made a class here and the name for the class is A. Now here coming inside my function, what I would just declare, I would just declare the init function. Fine. Now same thing about the init and self also, I've already made a separate video. So you can just go and have a look over that thing again. Fine. Def underscore underscore init underscore underscore and bracket itself. Fine. Self dot one. And even I'll just write underscore underscore. Now basically what is this one? So one is one of the functions which I am going to make downside. So let's see that basically where I'm just going to make that thing. Here I would just make one more function. Okay. Now the name for my function would be first. Fine. First. First and in bracket self would be automatically plus because like here we have used the init function. That is why. Fine. I will just come down and here I will just write as print, and inside this print statement I would just give the print a statement as first function. Fine. Now what else I have here? What I would be doing, I would just taking another thing, I would just writing that one function which I have just like declared above side, right? If underscore underscore one, self would be automatically passed, and inside that print the statement, what I am just going to write here, I'm just going to, let's say I'm just going to write here as private function. Okay, like I don't know why this basically something in my keyboard or something, why this I is like coming two times. Okay, private function. Okay, this time okay, fine. So here what I have done, I've just simply made a class that is A. Now inside that class I've just made a function that is def. Now that def function is basically init function which I have just made, and here I have just used myself and just called one of my function, that is one which I have just made here right now. So inside this one function what I have passed a statement that is private function. Then I have even made one more second function that is first, and inside that function what I have just written, I have written print first function. Now after coming out of my class, I will just make an object here. Let's say the object which I would be making is if you, and let's say fun is one of my name of the objects which I had made for my class, that is A. Okay. If I would just write here as fun dot first, okay, first, and I would just run this things and let's see that what happens basically. Okay, so now see here what I am getting here. As soon as I make the object for my class and as soon as I just run this first one, even even this first one only, I am getting this private function and the first function both in the output. Now I would just explain you this thing in a while. For now, just let me write one more thing. I would just write here fun dot underscore underscore one. Now here what I am doing, I'm just calling my one function also. See, okay. Now what happens here, basically have a look. One second, just one second. Okay. So firstly I will just explain you this thing and then I will just explain you that thing. Fine. See, as soon as I just run my function that is first function using the object of my class, that is fun, I have just made that right now, and I have just run my function that is first. Now inside my first, what I was having stored as my first function. So this first function should be printed. No, but it is not doing the same thing. It is giving me the output as private function and then it is giving me the first function, right? So this is the basic idea for the encapsulation. This is how we just write a function program for the encapsulation. Let me just try that for the fun. Just one second. Yeah, fun dot underscore underscore one and then the brackets. And just let me do one thing. Let me comment this thing. And now let's see that basically what happens here. Fine. Now here let's see that when I just call my function that is 1. Okay, so in that what it is giving me, it is giving me the output as private function. Just have a look over here. Fine. Now, I'm not getting this output because of this one. Because I have called this one, I'm not getting this output. This is output I'm getting because I have made here the object for my function, that is A. Fine. This is the main reason only, that why I was just previously also I was just getting the private function first, and then I was just getting the output as first function. Fine. So this is the basic reason that we cannot just directly call this one, because here I have just written this one, and before this one also what I have done, I have just used the self dot underscore underscore one. Fine. So this is the reason we cannot just call this one directly. Now this was about the encapsulation. Now just let me quickly comment this thing all above, and let's move towards the polymorphism. So I hope by the example you must have got the idea that basically what is this encapsulation. Let me quickly revise that one more. So encapsulation is one of the fundamental concepts in the object-oriented programming. It describes the idea of wrapping data and the methods that work on data with one unit. Fine. Moving towards the polymorphism. So yeah, just one second. Fine. So basically now what is the definition in polymorphism? In Python, polymorphism lets us define methods in child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. In inheritance, the child class inherits the method from the parent class. However, it is possible to modify a method in a child class that it has inherited from the parent class. Now, what it is showing here, what it is written a very long definition here, that in Python programming lets us define. Let's understand it line by line. So polymorphism lets us define methods in child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. Now, what it wants to say till here, this thing only, that polymorphism is a basically method in which we have a child class and the name for that child class have the same names which are in methods and the parent class. Fine, we will just see the example right now, then you will just get to know that basically what is happening here. But for now, what you can just keep in mind that polymorphism lets us define methods in the child class that have the same name as the methods in parent class. Let's move towards the pie chart. Let's see a proper example this side. Fine. I would just write here an example, and then you will just get to know that basically what I'm just trying to say. Let's say here I just made a class and the name for that class is mother. Fine. Okay. I just put a colon, and inside this mother class, what I am going to do here is that I'm just going to make one function. Let's say the name for that function is act. Fine, and inside that self would be automatically passed because I have just made the class and the function here itself. Fine. So one of my class is mother. Fine, I have just made a class that is mother. Inside that class, what I have done, I have passed function, and that function is made a function. That function is act, and inside that function, I have passed the self. Now what I have here, let's say I just write a print statement. I would just write here print as dancing. Fine. What I have done, right now I have just made one of the function that is method, and I have just mother. Inside that I have just made a function that is act. Self is automatically passed on that, and basically print dancing. Dancing is basically printed here. Now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to make one more function, right? Now that one more function is daughter. Okay. Now daughter is another function which I have just made here right now. So just let me do the D as capital for here, and I will just even put the colon here down. Now here what I am going to do, I am just going to make the same function which I have made above, that is act, and inside that I would just write the print statement, and inside print I would just write singing. Fine. So singing. Okay, I is missed here. Fine. Now for now I have just made another class that was a daughter, and I had even passed one made one function inside the daughter class that is act. Fine. So def act, and inside bracket I have passed self and print the singing. Fine. So this is basically what we just meant from that side, that from the class. Okay, hold on. Let me show that thing. So polymorphism lets us define methods in child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. So what I am just making here, I have just defined a method, right? That method is that. So daughter is my child class, my mother is my parent class. So I have defined the same methods in both the classes. That was which this is the same thing which a definition was saying. that polymorphism lets us define methods in the child class that have the same name as the methods in the parent class. Fine. So this was about the definition of the polymorphism. Let me quickly go to Python. Fine. Now let's quickly move downwards and let me take you to more down. Fine. Now here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to make one final function, that is def final, if I single I final, and inside the bracket I would just pass here one parameter, that is activity. Fine. Activity is one of my parameters which I would just passing inside the function, and that function name is final. Now after coming inside that, I would just write here activity. Okay. Fine, activity dot act. Now basically what I have just done, this activity, the parameter which was activity, like with that I have just like associated this act were the functions which I have just declared inside my daughter class and even inside my mother class, right? These were the like functions which we have just written that side. Fine. Now after coming out of my class and function, I will just declare one object. Let's say one is the object for my mother. Fine. So for mother I have just made an object that is 1. Now for the daughter I have made another object that is 2. Fine. Now I would just like write here as final and in bracket 1, and here I would just write here as final and in bracket 2. And now let's quickly run that thing. Okay, so here I just got dancing and singing because firstly I have like run the final one, and the one was having the object for mother. One is the object for mother. So in mother what we were having? In mother we were, just let me show you here. In mother we were having the activity as the dancing. So dancing is printed as the output to me very first. And then in the daughter class we were having the activity as singing. And even here in the print statement also I have just written that final 2. Right, so I have written is 2 afterwards. That is why it is showing me singing afterwards. Now quickly exchange these things. I will just write 1 afterwards, and even I will just write this 2 first. Okay. So here I have just written the 2 first and then 1 afterwards. Now I will just quickly run that thing. See, now the output has changed. Fine. Now, firstly it is singing and then secondly it is dancing. So the daughter class we have the singing, and for the mother we have dancing, because the daughter class was having the object as 2 and I have written that object 2 in the first time. Okay. And the mother class was having the object as 1. I have written this 1 in the afterwards of this 2. That is why it is resulting in the singing and dancing, the outputs like this. Fine. So this was about the polymorphism. Now let's once more go towards the definition. Fine. So above lines were done. So basically here it is written in inheritance, the child class inherits the method from the parent class. That is the same thing which we are doing right now. However, it is possible to modify a method in a child class that it has inherited from the parent class. So we are just even doing the same thing, right? We have taken the same function in for the child class and even for the parent class. The parent class was mother, right? The child class was daughter. So we have taken the same function in, that is act and add. After that, when we had just made the objects for both of these classes and just run the program, so we just got resulted and the desired output. Fine. So this was the example for the polymorphism. So till now we have completed the 3 topics, that are decorators, encapsulation and polymorphism. Now moving towards the setter methods. Fine. Now setter and getter, these 2 are the methods which are basically you can say just opposite to each other, or you can just say, fine, you can just say that these are a little bit similar to each other. Now getter and setter methods. Fine. So let's quickly go to the one note and read the definitions, and then we'll just see that what are basically these using the examples. Fine. Okay. Firstly, read this down things. Whatever I have just written this downside, just read this for a while. For each instance variable, a getter method returns its value, while a setter method sets or updates its value. Given this, getter and setter are also known as accessor and mutator. So firstly, understand this thing, that the second name for getters and setters are accessor and mutators. So getter methods are also called as accessor methods, and setter methods are also called as mutator methods. So this is the first thing which you should remember while from this thing. Let me just highlight that thing for a while, and I will just take fine. Let me just choose this highlighter. Fine. So here from this, the getters and setters. Fine. Getters and setters are also known as accessor and mutators. Fine. Now come upwards. A method defined within a class can either be an accessor or a mutator, as I told, getter or setter. The second name for getter and setter. And accessor method returns the information about the object but do not change the state or the object. Fine. Now what was this accessor methods? Fine. Now, as I just told that accessor and mutator are the two things. So, accessor methods is the getter methods, fine. So, the getter methods returns the information about the object but do not change the state or the object. So, basically what they do, they only tells us and returns the information about the object but they cannot change the state or the object basically, right? But what mutator methods or the mutator methods or the setter methods do, so mutator method also called an update method. So we have another name also, that is update method, can change the state of the object. So what is this mutator methods used for? They can change the state of the object and the accessor methods cannot do that. So in terms of getters and setters, so getter method returns the information about the object but do not change the state or object, and the setter methods can change the state of the object. So let me just quickly take the font and let's see that basically I just write here something or like that. So let me just take this and I would just take this typo. Fine. So here I would just even define the another name. So accessor is also called as, and yeah, just let me write here. Fine. So I would just put a slash here and even I would just write accessor methods are also called as getters. Fine. So I would just write GETTER. So you can just do not get confused about this. So an accessor slash getter method. Fine. So getter. And here mutator is also called as the setter. So I would just put even a slash here the side. Okay. And I would just okay, 1 second. Fine. So this is called as setters. Fine. So this is the even the second names for these all of these. Mutator setter methods can change the state of the object, and basically this getter method return the information about the object but do not change the state. So for each instance variable, a getter method returns its value while a setter method sets or updates its value. So now by now till now you have just got the idea that what this setter and getter methods do. Now let's quickly move towards the pie chart and see the examples for both of these things. Fine. So let's write the program. Firstly, what I would just do, I would just make it for the getter. So I would just put a comment here. I would just write here getter method. Fine. Just go down. Now here I would just define a class first of all. I would just define a class and let's say the name for the class is flower. Fine. The flower is one of the class which I have just defined right now. Now what next I have? Here inside this I would just make a init function. Fine. Init and the self is automatically passed inside that init. What else I have? I would just write here self dot type. As we have just made the class for a flower. The name for the name for our class is flower, right? So I would just take that which type of flower it is, right? So I would just write a self dot type and here it's type specify particular type. And let's say that is sunflower. Fine. So I have just specified a particular flower type for this class, that is flower, and that type is sunflower. Now what I have just done right now, I have just made a class that is flower. Fine. I have just even taken one function, that is init function, define that function. Fine. After coming inside that function, I have taken the help of self and I have just write a self dot type, and type basically define that what type of flower I have, and that is sunflower. So sunflower is the string which I have just passed in the self.type parameter. Now what I would do, I would just even make one more function. Fine. So here I would just declare the function and yeah, I would just declare a function. Now the name for my function would be getName, as we are just going to use that getter method. That is why I have just written here as getName, and the self is automatically passed, as you can just see. Here I would just return self.type. Now, self.type was one of the parameters, this one of the variables which I have just declared in the init function, right? So I have just returned that same thing. Return self.type. Coming out of my class, what I would just do, I would just make the object here. I would just write f is equal to flower. Flower is the f is the object for my class, that is flower, which I have just made right now. F is equal to flower. Now what next I have here, I would just take a variable that is a. Now here what I'm just going to use, I'm going to use the object of my class, that is f, and I'm just going to use my function which I have just made, that is getName, and I would just print here as, okay, print here as A. Fine. And now when I just run this program, so see here, I just got the output that is sunflower. So this is basically how we just write a program for the get method, getter methods. So getter method for to they like what they do, they simply return us the information, right? They do not update or they do not change anything. They simply return us the information, whatever they are having. So here what I just did, let me give a recap that I've just made a class that is flower. Now, after that class, inside that class, I've just declared a function that was init. Now, inside that init function, I have just written self.type and the type for my flower was sunflower. Coming out of my init function, but remaining inside my class, I have made another function. Now the function for my, like the name for that function is get underscore name. So here I just use my getter method, fine. Now, I just put the self. Now self was automatically there. I just returned self.type. Now self.type was having the string. Is that the string which I have just stored in the form of a flower name, and that was sunflower, right? After coming out of my class and my functions, I have just like taken and made a object for my class that is f. My class was flower, so I just wrote f as my object and declared it as the f is equal to flower. Now coming to the next line. Excuse me, I have just taken another variable that is a. Now I have written a is equal to f dot get underscore name. Now get underscore name was that function which we have just made for the getter method, and I have just simply printed a. So this resulted me the output as the sunflower. Now let's quickly move toward the one note one more time. Have a look at what I have written that time. An accessor slash getter method returns the information about the object but do not change the state or the object, right? So basically what it is giving if the giving us the information about the object but do not change the state or the object, right? So this was a small example for the getter method. Now let me just comment this thing and let's move towards the setter method, the last topic for today. So I would just like here comment, and I would just write here as setter methods. Fine. Let's quickly write an example for this thing right now. So for that, what I would just make another class, and I would just close this output window for a while. Fine. My class would be same which I have just taken that time, that was flower. Fine, I've just put the colon, but I'm not gonna copy even from my code also. I'm just going to write the whole thing like once more time. Def underscore init. This is the init function which I have just made. Now here I will just write self dot type, and I will just initialize the type of a flower. Let's say that was sunflower. We'll just take the same example. Fine. So this was just like same thing which we have taken above, and I've just written that. What else I have? I would just make another function. Now my function name would be a little bit different, and that would be set underscore name. That basically means that here what I am going to do, I'm just going to, okay, what I have just taken right now, just let me backspace. Fine. One second, just let me write the correct name. Okay. So basically now set underscore name, this is our setter method, right? So previously in the example, what we have used in the place of the set, we have used get. That was being treated as the getter method. But here I have written as set, so this is being treated as the setter method. So def set underscore name, and in bracket it is self. I will just write your self dot type, and let's say here I'm just gonna give one more new name, that is Lily. Okay, let's say Lily is one of the other flowers which I have just like taken here. Fine. So def set underscore name, set underscore name is my setter method and the name for my function, and I have just like returned self dot type is equal to Lily. Now what I would just do after coming out of my function, fine, after coming out of my function here, I would just like write f is equal to flower. I would just make the object for my class. I would just print. Okay, fine. One second. Yeah, I should be removed from this side and it should be added. Fine. Now listen to my words very carefully. I would just write here print f dot type. Fine, f dot type. This is done. Now I would just put a hashtag here and I will just write something here. This is like before using. Now what before using my set method. Fine, before using my set method, I'm just printing this f dot type. Now here what I'm just going to use, I'm just going to use my setter method which we have just taken right now. I would just write f dot set underscore name. I have just called my function this side, right? Now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to write print, and again I'm just going to write print dot type, and here I will just put a hashtag and I will like write a comment here, and this would be after using. So after and then using. Now when I would just run my program, now see basically what will happen. See, firstly what I was getting sunflower. So that sunflower I just got from this line, that is print f dot type before using, that is line number 20 according to me. And here why I just got that, because here inside my init function I have written self dot type is equal to sunflower. What else I have done? Now here I have called my set name function. So this is basically the function setter method which I have used. So here what I have done, I have just changed the name. Now I have given the name of that type as a lily. Basically before what I was just doing, I was just giving the name as sunflower. After that I have used my setter method, that is set underscore name, and I have simply given the new name as a lily flower. And after calling of that, I just wrote print f dot type. So it showed me that after using this setter method, the output for you is lily, right? So this is the example for the setter method which we have taken. Now let's do one more thing here. Let's take one more example here. Let's say what I would just write here one more time. Let's say the one more like example here. Fine. Class flower. Now inside this what I would just doing, I'm not going to make that init function and all that things. I would just write here def set underscore name. Now set underscore name is the function which I have just taken right now. Fine. And inside that is self is passed. Now with the self, what I am going to do here is that I'm going to pass one more parameter. So right now what I'm just telling you a short form for writing the set, for using the setter method. So I will just comment this thing. Fine. So here that is class is flower and def set underscore name self comma m. Now here what I am going to use here is that I'm just going to use self dot type. Okay, self dot type is equal to m. Now m was the parameter which I have like passed in my set underscore name function, right? So I just wrote that self dot type is equal to m. Coming out of my class, I would just make one object for my class, f is equal to flower and then the bracket. Fine. So object for my flower class is f. I would just write here f dot set underscore name, and inside the brackets what I'm just going to write, I'm just going to write lily. So this is basically one more method how you can just like use the setter methods. Fine. So f dot set underscore name lily, and here I would just write print, and inside this print I would just write print f dot type. And this is basically after using, but this is the one more method how you can just use your setter method. So I will just run the program and here will just get the output, that is lily. Fine. So this is the basically way how we can just use the getter and setter methods in our Python programming. This was the way. So I'll just let me quickly give a recap for the getter and setter method. So basically for the getter method, what we have done, we have made a class. The name for that class was flower. I have passed a function. That function was init. Fine. Then inside that function, I have written self.type, and that was sunflower. The type for the flower I have given as sunflower. Then I have made another function that was get underscore name, and I have written self.type. Return that. And after coming out of my class, I have just made the object and called my get name function, and it just simply printed me the output. And in the state name, what I have done, I had simply made one changement only. I have written here set underscore name. So use my setter method. And here inside that I have set a new name for my type whichever I was having. So I have just written self.type is equal to lily. Fine. And here I just wrote my object for the class. I just printed f.type before using my set name, and I have just printed that f.type after using my set name. So I just got the desired output. The first day I was just getting sunflower, right? And afterwards I was just getting lily, right? So this was all about decorators, encapsulation, polymorphism, setter and getter method. So we have discussed 5 topics right now. Let me just quickly give you one more recap about the names of the topic, that were decorators, encapsulation, polymorphism, setter and getter methods. So I hope you just got the video. So this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and bye bye.